Okay. Oh, yeah, there we go. We will share. Well, first and foremost, thank you for accepting our invitation. I will start by maybe allowing you to make a better introduction than the resumes that I have, which are incredible, by the way. You are kind of a big deal. I'll start with you. You're the head of heads. Can we even say that? I don't know if that's a term. So I will start with you. If you could please share with us a little bit about yourself, your journey, and of course, your incredible work here.
It's on?
Yes.
Oh, hello. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you. Okay. Thank you for being here this afternoon. My name is Josefina Martinez Gramuglia. I'm the ambassador of Argentina to Canada, and I proudly call Canada my home away from home. Yes. I have been calling it for the past 3 years. So a little bit about myself. I'm a mom, most and foremost. I'm a wife, and I'm also a career diplomat. I've been in the Foreign Affairs Service of my country for the past 25 years.
25, amazing, congratulations.
It's more years that I want to recognize, honestly, but yes, 25 already. And my journey started, well, with a lot of study, a lot of work at the beginning of my career. You know, in the Foreign Service, we have ranks. So we start at third secretary, and then we go all the way up until being an ambassador. In the middle, you have 8 promotions. Wow. So it's a long journey. My path also took me to represent my country and at the Security Council of the United Nations, which was a formative and amazing experience. I was head of political affairs in our embassy, the Argentine embassy to Washington, D.C., and I was doing very much political issues. And you know, D.C. is a political city. You breathe politics there, so another very interesting and formative experience. Then Argentina was chairing the G20, and I was asked to join the team, the Sherpa's team for the G20. So there I dealt with a very new stream of consideration of the G20 countries, which was the Digital Economy Task Force. After that, I was promoted to the Minister's Cabinet, and then I'm here. So when I look back, I said, how did I get here? But it was a fantastic journey, and I'm proud and I'm honored to be the representative of my country.
Oh, thank you for your leadership. And when I was reading your biography, I said, who goes to Security Council and then takes on the full crisis and genocide prevention? I mean, and you still look this young and incredible. I would have lost all my hair at that point. We'll proceed with you, my wonderful Romy.
Hi, I'm Romy Vásquez, the ambassador of Panama to Canada for the second time. I was
Yes!
I was here before in 2005 to 2009. I'm a businesswoman. But I got engaged into diplomacy when I was 25 in Mexico, becoming the economic advisor to the Embassy of Panama to Mexico. And I did that job for 10 years. And then I was moving as an expatriate family, where my husband was working for Dow Chemical, so we get to be expats in other countries. And then we decided to go back to Mexico, and I founded a very nice business that could take me back to Milan every year for the fairs. I had a factory for leather, yes, you didn't know that. Leather. For leather products, and I had 8 stores, 8 boutiques. And after that, that's when I became an ambassador. So it was a real challenge to come as an ambassador, but it was beautiful to represent my country and to be able to work on a free trade agreement and on an air agreement for our national flag airline, which is Copa Airlines, and we have 38 countries and 88 destinations,
Wow.
including Toronto and Montreal. So that was basically what I was doing here as a businesswoman and a diplomat. So after that, I engaged myself in logistics. I worked for DHL International, and I was also working for SNC Lavalin, a Canadian company that was engaged on the engineering, procurement, and contract management for the first and very large mining project in Panama called Cobre Panama. After that, I founded a consultation office where I do corporate social responsibility, and I've been doing that in the last 8 years until I was invited to come again to Canada as an ambassador. So here I am again, and being an honor to be here with you, having met you, Solange, when I first arrived, and being able to meet all my colleagues, which I share with all of them. We're 32 ambassadors, ladies ambassadors in Ottawa. We are the capital that has the largest number of ambassadors and high commissioners, and Josefina is our leader. She is the president of our group. So it's a pleasure to be here today celebrating International Women's Day with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Solange, and it's an honor to be speaking before such an eminent group. My name is Maria Austria. I am Ambassador of the Philippines, and I represent the over 1 million Filipinos and Filipino-Canadians who call Canada home. And I'm very proud to represent them. I have been a career Foreign Service officer for the past over 30 years. I'm a mother of 3 amazing, strong women and a grandmother to 2 cute grandsons.
Yes.
So I am honored to be here today to share my experience and perspectives on the very important role that women have in society. So thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's really great to be here with you. Although slightly terrifying to be the 4th person in a panel like this, because I don't really know what I can say that measures up to somebody who had a leather store with 8 different storefronts.
Right? Leather store.
It's pretty amazing. My name's Susannah Goshko. I'm the British High Commissioner. I've been in Canada for 2.5 years. It's terrifying how quickly time goes here. As a diplomat, you're allowed to spend a maximum of 4 years in a country. And you get there and you think 4 years is a long time, and 2.5 years in, you just start to panic about the fact that they're going to make you leave quite soon. I'm also a career diplomat, so 3 career diplomats on this panel, also of 25 years in the Foreign Office. It's totally terrifying also, because when I joined, I remember people saying, I've been in the Foreign Office 15 years, and thinking, gosh, they're old and experienced. I feel old, but not very experienced. I've done a number of different jobs in the Foreign Office. Just to touch on a whole variety. I started off working on human rights in Cuba, fascinating job. I have been our permanent representative to the United Nations Environment Programme, so lobbying and advocating for environmental change, thinking about how we work with the UN on that. I've also done a similar job to Josefina in Washington. I was there for the 2016 election. My job was to figure out who was going to win it and make sure that we knew them really well. Somehow I still have a job after that. And I've done stints in London as well. But I'm really delighted to be with you all today and really looking forward to the conversation.
Oh, wow. Thank you, thank you. And actually, it's funny how everything works out, because we met again post-pandemic when Susannah hosted us at her house. She has this amazing event where all the leaders in this city are only allowed to come to her party if you bring a mentor. Yes. Amazing. Thank you. Yes, you bring a mentee. Yes, the mentor bring the mentees. So that's how we showed up. We all had to bring someone. I brought Helen. We will, okay, let's get started. Empowering women and girls globally, obviously a big part of why we're here. In your role as esteemed leaders and diplomats, what do you perceive as the most pressing issue facing women and girls globally? And how can government, communities, and organizations collaborate to address these challenges and create meaningful change? I'm basically just asking you to eradicate gender inequalities in 2 minutes. I can start with, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. And I would like to refer to the theme of this year that the UN and the government of Canada adopted for International Women's Day in 2024. And it's invest in women and accelerate progress.
Yes.
So I think that this theme gives us an excellent framework for how to identify and address the most pressing issues as facing women today. Let me tell you some numbers that we learned from UN. According to United Nations, women aged 25-34 are 25% more likely to live in extreme poverty than men. And this is because women are often not given the same opportunities in terms of education and in terms of work. Women end up doing more domestic and unpaid care jobs, constraining their economy, their autonomy, and their well-being. So, and this is why my country has championed this issue at the United Nations, recognizing the importance of the value of care responsibilities globally. I could say that ensuring the empowerment, the economic empowerment of women and girls is a question of human rights, and it's not charity, right? And I think that could be one of the main challenges that I think we're facing right now. Closing these gaps, it's the right thing to do. And it's also a benefit for everyone, for the whole society. And ensuring women's and girls' rights across all aspects of life is the only way to secure that we have a prosperous and just societies and economies, and also a healthy planet for the future generations. I would say also that investing in the economic independence of women is one of the best ways to address gender-based violence. And this is an issue that also requires an urgent attention, specifically and particularly with the post-COVID situation, which we all know it aggravated limited mobility and increased economic precarity that limited women's ability to leave dangerous situations. So I would add also that this is indeed a global problem that requires international collaboration, and at many stages, an international organization, multilateral forums, this is an issue that very much is being addressed by the international community. Thank you.
Romy, would you like to follow before I ask the other question?
That Josefina has given us an amazing report, and I have decided that I will perhaps answer these questions in terms of what is my country and my region. And for me, the most important thing is education. Education being the essential tool, because girls need to learn to amplify their voices, learn to make their choices, and to improve their lives. But this obviously includes sexual education. Sexual education so they understand how their body works, how their body changes, and how to make personal decisions that will impact them for the future. And addressing the challenges from the source, I had come to the idea of something that I always carry in my mind, and it's the fact that girls need to start working at the communities. You know, it has to start, and talking about poverty, just to start working in communities and learn that they can understand what participation and leadership is as they become teenagers. So they learn about the opportunities and how they need to move forward. And what to demand from the local governments to move forward. And as such, this exercise will help them to advocate for the younger generations. They will become the role models as they grow older. And you were asking, for example, how organizations collaborate with them. Well, I have the idea that once these teenagers and young women, adult women, become leaders and advocates, the NGOs and the foundations will find them, will want to, you know, fund their voices in order to advance. So I think that once the NGOs detect these groups, because they develop a lot of self-esteem and they become the role models, they also learn to be part of the solution and not only part of the problem. So they become agents of change.
I like that. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I could not agree more with my two colleagues here. Most men would not admit it, but women are expected to do everything. We are expected to be mothers, daughters, domestic helpers. We keep the house, but we're also expected to have our own careers. So that when one child is sick, the person who needs to stay at home is often the mother. So we need to be able to do more to make sure that this imbalance in domestic responsibilities, or at least the perception of the role of women, is clarified, and that men share more of the burden that we normally carry patiently while running around in our high heels and permed hair. So,
Yes.
there is a lot of work to be done, and this work would need to start individually and be supported by institutions and government. So the work that Elevate does is extremely important in making sure that we have a seat at the table and that our place is recognized.
Thank you.
Thanks. I mean, there's so much that's been said here that really matters. I think on the question of what's the biggest challenge and how do we fix it, I agree with Romy that education is the piece. The problem is we're baking in from the get-go for hundreds of millions of girls across the world inequality because they don't get access and education in the same way that their male counterparts do. There are 250 million children worldwide who don't have access to education, and even in lower and middle income countries, 70% of them can't read by the age of 10. And I don't know how we expect women to be able to participate fully in life and to be fully represented at the table if they don't have that education as the foundational base. So for me, education is key to how globally we fix this problem. And in the UK, we've had a big push. We've had a campaign which has been around 12 years of quality education for every girl. And we put a huge amount of money behind this because we think that's one of the biggest things we can do to get children into education, to keep them in education, even in situations of conflict, actually. All the studies show that even when there's conflict raging around you, one of the best things you can do for children's mental health and stability is keep them in education and give them some normality. So we have a big push on that, and I think if there's one thing that we can really do to try and change outcomes for women across the world, it's going in right at the ground floor level and making sure that everybody gets 12 years of quality education.
Wow. Absolutely. Actually, you keep the mic. I'll give you this one. We will continue on leadership because you've spoken about leadership so many times in some of the events that we've attended and that you've hosted. Given the unique cultural background and experiences you bring from your respective countries, how do you prioritize and uphold diversity in leadership within your organization? And what strategies have proven to be effective and really that have genuinely worked for you in promoting inclusivity at all levels?
Yeah, I mean, isn't this the key question? It's so important. Look, I think you've probably heard me tell this story before. When I joined the Foreign Office 25 years ago, there were more men on the Foreign Office board called John than there were women. Now, you think that's a funny story, but the punchline is there was actually only one man called John. And we are now almost at parity. So 10 of our ambassadors in G20 countries are women. It was until recently, until last year when we let a pesky man take over in Rome, all of our G7 ambassadors were women. And we've got really good representation, but that hasn't happened by accident at all. And there are things I think leaders have to do in organizations. There are conscious choices you make to get diversity, and that's not just about women, it's about the breadth of diversity into your senior leadership. And for me, that involves some quite brave choices. So some of it feels quite obvious. We went through a big change in the Foreign Office of saying no single gender shortlists, for example, for senior jobs. And if you don't have the pipelines for those jobs, you've got to go out there and find people. If that means going to the private sector, that's what you've got to do. But one of the most inventive things that I've seen us do, which I think we actually stole from the Italians, but maybe I should just claim credit for it, I don't know. We had a thing which we called the Mirror Challenge. And we found a place centrally in the Foreign Office, so this is our headquarters in London. We found a big central location, and we put up all the key jobs. And we put up the pictures of the first women to do those key jobs. It was quite frightening because actually lots of them had never been done by a woman. And so what we did was, in those jobs that had never been filled by a woman, we put up a picture of a mirror. And the idea of it was really simple. It was to get people to go through there, look in the mirror and see themselves in those jobs and challenge themselves to get those jobs. And we gave ourselves a timeline because as every one of those jobs was filled by a woman, then the mirror would be turned around and that woman's image would be put up. And we're pretty much there now. There aren't any jobs that haven't been done. Actually, that's not true. There is. The very head job, the most senior civil servant in the Foreign Office has yet to be a woman, but I reckon we're almost there on that one too. And that has the cultural mind shift that drove, the really clear signaling from the top of, we are going to change this, and we're visibly holding ourselves to account, I think was one of the things that really drove change for us as an organization. And for me, once you get that inclusivity, once you get women and diversity more broadly into your senior leadership, that brings with it the diversity of thought. And it becomes quite, I think, it becomes quite self-perpetuating because people, diverse people in leadership positions look for greater diversity in their recruits. And so that's been the biggest change that we've had that's driven diversity in our leadership.
Thank you.
Thank you. I love the mirror challenge. That's amazing. In the case of the Philippines, it covers several aspects. We are not a homogeneous society. There are about 17 indigenous groups in the Philippines. There are over 100 ethno-linguistic languages in the Philippines. So to be able to ensure diversity, it has to be a very conscious effort. So laws have been put in place to make sure that everyone has a seat at the table, or at least everyone has an opportunity to participate and be heard. In terms of gender balance and equity in the Philippines, we have done pretty well. We are number 16 in the list of 146 countries in terms of gender parity. But again, it did not happen by accident. It's a very conscious effort. It is in our laws that X amount of money in every department's budget, down to the smallest office, need to be devoted to gender and development projects. It's a law. You get audited, you get cited. If you are not able to devote X amount of money,
the percentages provided by law to projects that will promote gender parity and inclusivity. So every little step is hard fought, but it has to be a conscious effort. It does not happen by accident.
Thank you.
Well, Panama is a crossroads country, and we have a great diversity of women and men, of course. We have indigenous, mestizos, Creole, Afro-descendants, Caucasian, Hispanic, Chinese, Indian. It's amazing, and it's a place for business. And many of the people from the Caribbean came to construct the Panama Canal, and they decided to stay in Panama as their country of origin. So what Panama did in terms of government was to create the National Council of Women back in 2008 with the purpose to create the public policies for women equal opportunities and to prevent and mitigate gender violence. So diversity of women started having a political space. But this government that I represent now, when, it was not enough. So we created last year the Ministry of Women. And with the Ministry of Women, it was for us, for a country like us, a milestone in the commitment of society and the Panamanian state gender equality. And I have to say that my Ministry of Foreign Affairs has a pretty good representations of ambassadors and directors, women, and we have had a lot of our ministers of foreign affairs as women. We had, in the last term, a vice president who was also the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We had right now 2 ministers of foreign affairs at different years, and also one of the deputy ministers. We have had in our history 2 or 3 Supreme Court presidents, chairs. So basically, we have never really felt that we had a problem with diversity in Panama until we had to face gender violence. And gender violence became something very important when women started participating in politics. And it's amazing because this morning we were having, a conversation about hate online and how you can be abused, through social media. And one of the things that I believe that our Ministry of Women and our National Council on Women is working on, as it doesn't matter what we're all Panamanians, and we welcome people from all over the world, but we really have to work on women in politics and not being abused, because there's a lot of violence against women in politics. Wow. So it's pretty much like, okay, you can be diverse, and then yes, there is parity, but as you said, or as we all said, men want women there. They don't want them making decisions. So somehow we have policies, and even Parlamericas here help us in the Americas to bring more policies for women on politics, and somehow they have to fight 2 or 3 times more than any man just in politics. And for some reason, we are also considered in my country, women in my country that are more ethical when they work as public servants than the men themselves. So even to work as a woman has another burden on us, that is that we have to fight not only the abuse, but also that they are trying to make you corrupted, and we are not corrupted. I mean, women, we are more ethical. We're mothers, we're role models. We just want to have equal parity in salaries, right? And somehow there's always an obstacle, but we're fighting it. We're really fighting it.
Wow.
And so now I have the benefit of speaking after my very wise and distinguished colleagues' comments. So I would say all of it. I agree with everything that you mentioned, and let me tell you a little bit about what's going on in my country. promoting leadership, in particular at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, in our diplomatic corps, I would have to say it's a work in progress. And the first step is, of course, getting women to the door. And I share with Susannah the same experience. 25 years ago, when I entered the Foreign Service Institute, we were, out of a cohort of 20, we were only 3. As if we were, let's say, a symbol, a token.
A token.
Exactly, it's token. Right? So there was a non-written rule, like some sort of, underground, that established a specific percentage of how many women could be allowed to enter to the Foreign Service Institute and to ultimately represent your country. And this was not based in skills or qualifications. It was rather a stereotype about the diplomacy as a men's club. At the time, it felt so unfair, but we had to deal with the cards. I'm sorry, we have to manage the cards who are being dealt, right? So that has changed over time, not only in terms of women and gender parity, but also in terms of all diversity. So how did it change? Well, for example, with you could say baby steps, but they were very important in terms of results. The exams became anonymous. The exams to enter the Foreign Service became anonymous. So in that way, you were given a code, and the code doesn't say if you are woman, man, whatever. So, and that was very important for everybody because it put us on an equal footage, regardless our gender. But again, diversity in leadership is a work in progress all the time, and we have to take affirmative actions just to change traditional structures that not necessarily reflect the world of today with all its diversity.
Yes.
So I think it's, we keep on working on that.
We keep working. We keep working. I'm going to combine question 3 and the last question just because I think we could be here for a few hours. In fact, we should probably schedule a part 2 of this. How do we overcome barriers and how do we build resilience for the future? Should we start with you, Suzanne?
How do we overcome barriers is another great question. I think that, and I'm willing to bet that everybody here agrees with me on this, that those of us who are lucky enough to have climbed the greasy pole owe it to the generation beneath us to be doing everything we can now to be breaking down those barriers. And for me, what that looks like is actually, I remember, I'm really interested by the fact that you started by saying you were a mother. I spent the first about 10 years of my children's lives not talking about them at work at all, because I am definitely of the generation where women did not talk about having children in the workplace because it just got in the way of people taking you seriously.
Wow.
So I did not talk about my children. And I remember quite recently, really recently, it was only about 5 years ago, and I was doing a job as chief of staff to our foreign secretary, chef de cabinet kind of job. And I sat down with the foreign affairs advisor to the Prime Minister, who had been newly appointed. And he was someone I knew from the Foreign Office. And I said to him, congratulations on the job, that's really great news. And he said, yes, I'm really pleased to get it. Because when I applied for it, I said to the Prime Minister, it was Theresa May, who was our Prime Minister at the time, that I'm really interested in this job, but I want to be home 3 days a week to put my children to bed. And honestly, it stopped me short. I just thought, I have never felt as a woman that I could ever say anything like that. And I said to him, it was so powerful that a man was saying that a man was saying, I want to put my children to bed, that I walked out of there that day and thought, I am now going to talk about my children all
the time.
Because I've basically got somewhere in my career, and now I owe it to open up the space for everybody else. And so what can we do to overcome barriers? I would say, those of you who are men in the room, you need to be doing that. You need to be, when you're going to your children's plays, when you're going home because your child isn't very well, you need to be telling everybody you're doing that, because you need to be making it okay for the fact that largely it is women who are doing that kind of thing, and then it's held against us in the workplace. And those of us who are in a space to be able to change the dynamic need to be doing everything we can to signal that it's okay to be a whole person at work. That double bind that we find ourselves in, where we're trying to be a brilliant professional at work, but also trying to be a really good mother and wife and all of those other things that add to things, that it's okay to be that whole person, and that doesn't make you less of any one of them. And for me, this has been a real revelation. I honestly spent years hiding that because I thought it would get in the way. And actually, I go as far as to say I think it would have got in the way in the early stages of my career. And it's only now that I think I, relatively have a bit of power because I've got a bit of seniority, that I can use that to open up the space for other people. So I think thinking about how we open space for other people, and that includes allies, men in the room, doing what they can as well.
Thank you. That's very empowering, Susannah. I do remember a time as a young mother, I had to stay home because one kid was sick or something, and a boss told me, "Don't ever do that to me again." And I was like, how? But it seemed totally normal to them at the time, and it seemed, the worst part is it was totally normal to me. But thankfully, those days are gone. Or at least, it doesn't seem to be so bad anymore. But Susannah spoke about breaking barriers. I'd like to speak about resiliency. Women are the most resilient creatures around.
That is true.
Because for one, we have been used to juggling so many balls in the air that even if one drops, we're okay. We do not fall apart. And the pandemic taught us a lot of lessons in resiliency. Yeah. That it is okay to stay home and be able to do the same kind of quality work that you would have to do in the office. That it's okay to it's okay to stay home twice a week. It's okay to pick up groceries, to have somebody pick out your fruit instead of you personally picking out the best fruit for your family. I mean, these are things that used to boggle my mind. But it's okay. We have learned. We have learned that it's okay to let other people do the task that we were told we were supposed to do personally. And the world continues to move on. The world does not fall apart. We do not fall apart. So we are the best examples of resiliency, and we just need to make sure that people accept that. And I think that if we continue to work together in building the new normal, not just for ourselves, but as Susannah said, for those who will come after us, we build on the gains of those who came before us, the world will be a much better place.
Wow. Amazing. I haven't talked about my children yet. And I'm a mother of two, not a grandmother yet, and I envy you. But anyway, I think that in Panama, we don't have that many barriers, and family is always there to help. But that also means that not too many of us are abroad, abroad of Panama. But those of us who have the chance to be in any other part of the world and learn and learn so many good things, I would say that, to me, the best way to get barriers down is domesticated men. You have to domesticate them. You have to tell them. You have to indeed tell them. It is true. You have to tell them what the barriers are, as you have to tell them, to your boss, don't do this to me again. No, most likely I will. because it will happen again. And, you know, you also teach, if you have boys, and, you know, children and they're men, you have to teach them too. You know, yes, you have to teach your sons what to do to respect. If they respect their mom who is working, they also have to respect who they are going to be sharing their life with. So they have to be participants and they have to do things at home and help and learn. So you have to domesticate them. That's it. Keyword. In terms of being resilient, well, you know, in terms of being resilient, oh my God, that is the best word and the best term after COVID. We never talk about resiliency until after COVID. Honestly, we were already resilient as women, we were, but we didn't talk about it. And it was because women became the most vulnerable, you know, in this process of being at COVID, taking care of their parents, their children, their families. But men also learn a little bit. I think that they're more into that. But adapting to new circumstances, I just think that the most important thing as we discover innovation and artificial intelligence, and we decide to try, the most important thing is that if we fail, it's okay to fail.
It's okay. Yep.
It's okay to fail. And then try it again. Yep. You know, you fall, get up, and do it again. Because it's not these kind of things that we will always need, you know, someone else doing it for us. We have to try it ourselves to know how resilient we are. So resiliency, to me, well, it's, you know, telling my team at work, you know, we are a team. All of us, we're a family after this COVID especially, but we all have to take care of all of us. Yes. And in my team, we're all women. So we do take care of all of us, but we need to take care of all of us all the time. It is not the head of mission's job to take care of everybody.
All of us.
Everybody has to take care of everybody, and the heads of mission, sometimes we also need help.
Yes.
Of course, we do. So please just move ahead, domesticate men, take the barriers down, and just move on, and don't be afraid to fail. Just get up again and do it again.
How do we follow that?
I think we learned a very important lesson today from
That's
my
it.
good friend and fantastic ambassador, Romy. Domesticate men. Okay. I will try to apply it at home. Let's see how it works. So, was the key obstacles, right? And actionable steps, and to overcome barriers. And of course, I share many of the comments previously made. I want to tell you a little story. When I was at the UN Security Council, I arrived in 2005, and a couple of months, that was in the summer of 2005, a couple of months later, I got pregnant with my first daughter. And yes, I like to introduce myself as a mom, because I think it's the most important title that we have, than the other ones. So, and it was funny because at the beginning I was very much afraid to tell everybody at the mission that I was pregnant. And at some point I'm gonna want a leave to take care of my baby, right? So again, going back again at the Security Council, the informal room where the informal consultations are being held, it's a very small room. At the time it was, I don't know if it changed. It's a very small room, and with little desks, like school desks, to sit and to have informal consultations. It's not the big chamber where you take a vote, you raise your hand and take a vote. So I remember as my pregnancy was developing, I had some problems to take a seat. Yeah, essentially squeezing it. When I was 8 months pregnant, I couldn't fit anymore at all. I was sitting like this. And I realized nobody took notice that I was, you know, very uncomfortable with my belly. So I approached one of the security guards and I said, could I have a an actual chair, not this one, to sit. And then they realize that, okay, maybe we have a representative that's pregnant and needs a common chair, not a school desk. So I think I'm happy to think that I put like my very small micro grain of of thinking into that and to promoting change. But most generally, it's this anecdote is like a reminder of a lot of spaces in this career path that were not created with women in mind, and that we are right now very active members of this diplomatic world, and that we share the same challenges and the same constraints. So talking about glass ceiling situations and side sittings, there's a lot of glass thingies talk around these days, but I could say also that of course, as many of you in any industry and any area of life, you faced some difficult situations, times when you pitch ideas relevant to your authorities, but you are not allowed to because you don't have the rank enough to do so, or because men knew better. And at some point I was asked, how did my diplomatic training helped in overcome that situation? And I could say that my diplomatic training helped to do exactly what my diplomatic training said that I had to do. So I challenged the norm. And I tried to, in a way, there's in diplomacy there's this principle, I could say, it's the right to dissent, right? When you are given an instruction, and maybe you have grounds to believe that that's not the appropriate one, so respectfully you challenge that. Well, I was inspired by that, and as respectfully as I could, I challenged the norm, and I tried to, again, provoke the change that I was desiring, and that I thought it was better for that specific situation. So I think that that's another way to try to manage those challenges.
Wow. Well, I think this definitely calls for a part 2, maybe at the Reader Club. I love when you said we all have to take care of each other all the time. Lisa was like all in because she preaches the whole, loving human beings and being a human at work and outside of work. So I appreciate the 4 of you. Thank you for saying yes right away. I also love that they're really great friends. Like, I don't know if you could hear, they've been chatting since 2 till they walked on this stage, and they were laughing and they had inside joke. And when I invited them all individually, they all had the same answer. Let me check with my girls. That all of them. And I'm like, do they have the same assistant responding, but this is their what's up? Like, they're just like, let me check with my girls. We're coming together. So I love that creates space, but you create space for each other, and you also show us that the new generation of women leaders is collectively advancing together. Susannah, we'll see you at your house, I'm pretty sure, soon. Thank you. Thank you all for accepting our invitation. I'm sure we have many more conversations to come. And thank you for taking up space and for your incredible leadership. Thank you.